fellow boatlings, I am ReaverJolt and welcome to another video. Today we are doing a special type of video. This is the first video in the series that I am calling Rising Hunters, where I go around interviewing other Monster Hunter content creators of the same size or lower. And the first Monster Hunter content creator we are interviewing today for this series is my good friend, The Hunter Project.
I am The Hunter Project, and yeah, thank you, Reaver, for having me on your channel. It's a very privileged opportunity to have, considering I'm quite small in comparison to a lot of the other YouTubers that are doing Monster Hunter at the moment. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah, no problem, man. So let's go ahead. I'm going to be asking you some questions that I have listed here, and a lot of them are from fans, but the first one we're actually going to go over is a question that one of my admins actually had. What do you think of Monster Hunter Rise's difficulty? Do you think it's good for beginners of the franchise? And if so, why?
I think it's definitely a very good place it's in. Like, I think the curve is definitely more prevalent than previous games. Like, I remember playing Freedom Unite and I was struggling on the urgent quest. I think it was like Star 5, first time you fight Tigrex. Whereas this game, I definitely feel like the village starts you off at a good beginner point, and then it's got a very nice curve going into like the high rank of the late side of the hub quests. I definitely think there's like a good learning curve for newer players, and then even for like maybe veteran players. Like, we already know how, say for example, like Kezu or Rathlos moves, so we still have that in the back of our brain. And for Rise, it's more of the how can we kill this monster quicker, with now we having the wire bug, all the new weapon combos with all like the switch skills. It's definitely more beginner friendly, but we have G rank to wait for anyways for veteran players. I think it's in a good place, to put it simply.
Right, I do agree. One thing I wanted to add to that too was a lot of people are complaining that the game is way too easy, which, you know, in certain aspects, like the single player village, I do agree is a bit easy. I've come to terms with the difficulty actually being a good thing, because this is good for beginners. Monster Hunter World was a good game for beginners to start with, but it was a very expensive game to get into. Like, you had to have a PS4, Xbox One, or PC to get into the game in the first place, and those are all pretty expensive. Around the time the base game of Monster Hunter World was around $60, but it's not like that anymore. But Monster Hunter Rise, being on the Nintendo Switch, it's a very easy console. It's not very expensive, the console itself, and even if you get the Nintendo Switch Lite, that's even cheaper. Monster Hunter Rise is a much easier game to get into in that regard, so I do agree that Monster Hunter Rise is definitely a good game for beginners to get started with, like beginners of the franchise in general.
Yeah, 100% agree. Adding on to your point about how the Switch is easier to buy than like the Xbox and the PlayStation, like, I do have quite a few people in my Discord who are on the Switch Lite, and even like more younger users. So I definitely agree with how good they're not just like throwing super hard difficulty just to please veterans of the series that keep complaining it's getting too easy.
Yeah, right.
So yeah.
All right, so the next question, these are all questions that I'm going to ask you first before we get to the fans' questions. How did you start your channel, and where did you get your inspiration?
So one of them stemmed from a personal reason, which was just my work in general. So I tutor kids. Like, I love my job. Like, it's a good job. But then it got to the point where I was like, can I be asked working today? Do I want to keep working for someone else's like schedule? And then that was kind of the pushing point where I was like, you know what? I'm going to try build a brand. Gaming is what I like to do. Monster Hunter is one of my favorite series, like tied with Halo. YouTube is probably the easiest way to build a brand around gaming. Obviously there's Twitch as well, but I just felt YouTube editing just seems fun. And it is enjoyable. I'm still doing it today. I still haven't hit 1,000 subscribers. I know a lot of people probably will lose motivation 6 months in, not hitting monetization. Like, I'm not really too bothered about that yet. As for the inspiration, channels like the Syndicate Project, Ali, this is definitely from childhood. So like, I would definitely play, I'll be playing Call of Duty, I would be watching like Ali, Call of Duty Zombies, I'd be watching the Syndicate Project. And then with Monster Hunter, I was watching a lot of Gaijin Hunter. And then, of course, that's where I came across your channel with the challenges, which were really, really good and fun to watch. And yeah, that's where the inspiration came for creating the channel. Those two reasons.
That's very good, yeah. I think a lot of times when people start their channels, in fact, I've actually gone through this myself. I was pretty small. I had like 100 subs at around the time, and you know, when Kappa hit, that's when I was really discouraged. But then later on, when they cleared things up, that's when I got a little bit more encouraged to get back into YouTube. And once I did and started doing challenge videos, which are ultimately why my channel is where it is today, I'm at 12,000 subs. I was, when I first started doing challenge videos, I was at like 500 subs, somewhere around there, and then I started growing massively within like the course of 2 months, up to like 1,000 subs, and then quickly to 3,000, which was insane to me.
I definitely saw that when I was growing my own channel from when I was like, say, less than 100 subs. I was actually looking at your channel a lot for like seeing how you grew. You had like, I think it was the top 100 monsters in Monster Hunter, and you had like multiple lists in one video. And then I looked further down, like a month or two, you had challenges that started popping off, and I was like, how could I replicate this in my own way? But then I realized like you can't exactly just replicate someone's channel like just from looking at it,
right?
Because obviously the algorithm plays a big part in what I'm trying to do. Because I think I created a challenge video around 100 subscribers, not sharpening my weapon in Monster Hunter World, but it just didn't have the same effect because it wasn't me, it was more me looking at your challenge videos, taking, I think you might have done it in Generations or for Ultimate, and I was like,
yeah,
people haven't done this for World, or at least not from what I've seen. I was like, maybe if I do this, it'll pop off, but it just didn't.
Oh.
And that was like one of the points where I was like, this is a bit demotivating. Do I keep going? I just put 12 hours playing World from start to finish, like just to get hardly any views.
Oh.
But of course, that's part of
I think one of the biggest things when it comes to trying to get views with the trends, like with the common trends, is that sometimes, from what I've learned, it's best to take someone else's idea and put your own spin onto it, which I think that's what you were trying to do from what you were explaining.
Right.
But sometimes one person's idea may not work for another person, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
In fact, my challenges were actually inspired by people who are doing challenges for other games, like Mario without touching a coin and challenges like that.
That was a pretty mad challenge on your channel when you did blindfolded hunt.
Oh, yes.
I saw the title of that and I was like, this is not gonna go well. But you actually did a decent attempt on the, I think I commented when you had an attempt that was very close. It was Toby Kadachi and Magnum Arlo, I think.
Toby, Baroth, and Magnum Arlo, yeah.
Yeah, and you ended up killing all of them. Was it just Magnum Arlo left, I think?
Magnum Arlo was the only one standing, and I still, because I couldn't see. But yeah.
No, it was quite impressive.
Yeah, thanks. The next question I had was regarding challenge videos, but I'm going to ask it anyway, just to see what your thoughts are on it. What do you think about challenge videos? Whether it's Monster Hunter or another game or anything like that.
It's a very cool, like, idea for a game, or even just challenges in general. Specifically for games, your type of challenges that you were doing on your channel, it's a big time consumption. But of course, it depends on the challenge. I think it's a cool idea, but personally, not for me. I think it just didn't click when I did it on my channel because it was such a big time consumption.
Right.
But it's very fun to watch. I think a lot of people don't understand how much work actually goes into it.
Yeah,
But I have a lot of respect for like, completing Rise from start to finish, doing blank.
I still have yet to do a challenge where I actually go from start to finish, because that challenge I did on Monster Hunter Rise without Wirebug, I couldn't even get past the Rampage tutorial.
Yeah, I remember seeing it.
The next and last question from me is, how did you get your channel name? Where did that come from?
So this surprisingly comes from WWE. So if any of you have watched it, you know who Triple H is.
Oh, yes, I've watched it.
Hunter is one of the H's. Like Triple H, one of the H's are Hunter. And then in 2007, when Halo 3 came out on the Xbox 360, that's when I got Xbox Live for the first time. So I was like, what should I name it? And I was like, Triple H is my favorite wrestler. So it just became Hunter. And then I had some random numbers on the end of it. And then I had an Instagram art channel that became Hunter Arts. I decided to make that my personal overall Instagram account. So I changed the art into the Hunter Project, which comes from obviously the Syndicate Project. From the other question on why I started this YouTube, how I got inspired. So yeah, I took the Syndicate Project and Hunter and made it the Hunter Project, and that's where the name comes from.
Let's go on to the questions that the fans have. The first one that I have for you from Knives a Lot: what unique mechanic featured in a Monster Hunter game would you like to see come back again? For example, Wirebug, Underwater, Clutch Claw, etc.
Ooh, that's actually a very hard one, because I do actually miss the Clutch Claw. Not the weakening aspect, but like the ability to clutch onto a monster at any given moment is definitely very missed. But if I had to choose one, it'd probably be underwater. Just because I feel like I might be one of the few people who think this, but the underwater in 3 Ultimate, I love to bits. It was a bit like, obviously, not refined exactly, like especially with some of the weapons. I definitely enjoyed having the ability, oh, look, there's a patch of water there. I'm just going to go dive into it and chase the Plessy off into the sea. I definitely enjoyed the sense of like immersion. I hate when you come to the edge of some water and then there's just an invisible wall.
Yeah, that's frustrating. I mean, I want to add a little bit to this. Like, the underwater mechanic is, in my opinion, it's good, but I cannot deny the fact that it has its flaws. But if it does come back, which I do hope it does come back as well, I would really like to see it polished, like a lot more polished, to something like, I don't know. Let's see, what's a good underwater game that I can think of other than Subnautica? Because you know people are gonna be saying Subnautica because that's like one of the best underwater games out there. I'm thinking if they're gonna bring it back, they have to make combat underwater a little bit more fluid. No pun intended.
Yeah. I think they maybe could like even go hand in hand with like maybe the clutch claw or something similar to the clutch claw to pull yourself around in the water. Maybe something just to make traversal more, like you said, fluid. Once again, no pun intended. But like, even if they like merge like the wirebug with underwater combat, I don't know, made the wirebug waterproof or something. So you could just pull yourself around more easily.
Yeah. They need to adjust the iframes underwater if that's the case as well, because the iframes in Tri and 3U were a little non-existent, especially since there was no Superman dive underwater.
Yeah.
So this one is from Shadow the Nargacuga. Her question is, what got you guys into Monster Hunter? Did the game immediately click for you guys, or did it take a bit to warm up to?
For me, Monster Hunter surprisingly clicked first time. I do see a lot of people who think, like, I have a friend as well, one of my close friends, who played the game and then didn't like it, and then ended up playing it with me again when I jumped onto PC for World, and they played it again because I was playing it, and it clicked for them second time round. For me personally, it clicked first time. It might be due to the fact I was a child. You're more easier to get attached to a game, especially if you're young and you don't have your preferences. Like now, if I play something, I have to be very attached, invested to the like, is it good story? Is it good gameplay? Is it good this, good that? But as a kid, I was just like, oh, new game, I'm gonna play this. And then I happened to enjoy it. And I did actually play with 2 brothers and my sister on Freedom Unite on the PSP. So that probably had a big part as to why I got attached to it, because we always used to just play together. Probably a big reason why I was hooked straight away.
Was Freedom Unite your first game?
Yes.
Oh, cool. That's very cool.
And it was my first game on the PSP as well.
Oh, cool. That's cool.
Yeah.
My first game, and I've already answered this question many times to my fans, but I'm going to answer it again. What got me into Monster Hunter in the first place was when I first saw a trailer for Monster Hunter Tri. And of course, that being my first game, I got hooked when I got it. I read the reviews on the game. A lot of them were like 10 out of 10. But then I saw one review who was just like, the game is way too grindy. It's too hard, la la la. But then when I actually got into the game, bought it from GameStop, got it on the Wii, I played it. The grind was a little tedious at first, but once I actually got into combat with some monsters, I felt the challenge and I actually really enjoyed it. And it was very, very different from your normal RPG, which is something I really wanted to have. Back then, I was playing games like your average everyday RPG game, but Monster Hunter really changed that for me. You don't have a level up system. You just have your skills based on what armor set you have, how many points are put into that skill. Well, we don't have that anymore, but I really liked that system, and that's what really drew me in. And I really love the monster designs. They're just so top-notch. And Lagiacrus was the one monster that got me to play the game in the first place. While he may not be a favorite monster of mine, he will still hold a special place in my heart because of getting me started in the actual franchise.
Right, yeah, I have a similar attachment to Tigrex. As I mentioned before, with the urgent quest in the village, Tigrex was giving me a massive pain to deal with. When I killed it, I was just like, he's worthy of a spot in my heart for just being a very good like passing point. I think it was the urgent close into high rank. It might have been the urgent into high rank, and it was like a good like monster to test that you've actually learned all the basics of the game. And then since then, every time I see Tigrex, I'm just like, yep, worthy monster of me fighting it. 100%.
Yeah, that's really good. This question comes from Dino. What's been your favorite fights in Rise so far?
Favorite fight so far probably is Nawa, and I'm not sure if it's because it's grown on me because I've been learning to speedrun it. Not the best. Team Darkside like absolutely slices my time into like 350 pieces. For the most part, I really enjoy the fight. Like, I like learning the fight. There's a lot of like spots where you can learn your positioning to always be hitting the thunder sack, like when it does its special attacks.
Right.
And it was just fun learning that. So that's definitely, right now, that's probably my favorite fight. Especially since it involves the siege weapons, which are really fun to use with how overpowered they are when they do spawn in, like here and there during the battle.
For me, it has to be Almudron. I know there are so many people who complain how accurate his tail is and how hard he hits, but for me, that adds to the challenge. I really like Almudron because of how challenging he is to fight and how hard he hits. That probably stems from the fact that I love both Reaver Astalos, which, you know, is obvious at this point. I love the fight. I love the design. The fact that he hits so hard, it makes him challenging. I always love that type of thing. I wouldn't say that Almudron would be like a top 10 favorite or anything like that. He's definitely a challenge, and that's why I like him.
I think he exceeded my expectations as well, because I thought it would be like pretty easy fight, like weaker than Mizutsune, but it turns out he might be possibly stronger, at least when you're fighting him. I've had more difficulty with Almudron than Mizutsune, but I don't know if that's because I'm used to Mizutsune's moveset, or at least for what it was in the previous games. For the most part, I definitely was impressed with how Almudron came through in Rise. Yes. From the marketing material, at least. Yes,
Almudron definitely took a lot of players by surprise, in my opinion, and I just really liked that about him. I also really love Gosharog. I love the design. I wouldn't say he's a favorite, again, like I said with Almudron, but I do love his concept. A giant yeti that wields ice swords and heats up. It's such a cool idea.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I have to agree with that. I think his moveset as well is very cool, especially when he's enraged and he has his ice swords out and he just starts recklessly swinging everywhere.
Yeah,
and he's like, he's curving like a Diabolos.
Yeah, it almost reminds me of something like, I never played Dark Souls, but it reminds me of something from Dark Souls when he swings his swords around like that.
I've never played Dark Souls either, so...
Yeah, but I have seen gameplay of it, so I kind of know.
Right.
I kind of know. All right, so this next question comes from Edric. What was your favorite Monster Hunter game? He says was. I don't know if the was part was intentional or if he was trying to say is. What is your favorite game or what was your favorite game? I don't know. Let's just go with the is part.
Favorite game? As of how they are right now, so of course I love Rise to bits, but without the G rank, I do feel like the end game is lacking. It's pretty clear, but that's not a fair comparison considering all the other games have had their ultimate expansion. So right now, it'd probably have to be a joint first place of 4 Ultimate and Iceborne.
That's fair, yeah.
Because Iceborne, I'd say, has so much content. Like, I was hooked into that for like hundreds and hundreds of hours. But then 4 Ultimate had me hooked from beginning with the story all the way to the end of its life cycle. The entire way through, the monster roster was extremely good. The way they innovated with the traversal was insanely good as well, with like how you could get up cliffs faster. Of course, you still had the area in Ancestral Steppes that had like 200 cliffs to get up.
Yeah.
I think it was Gormagala's like initial starting point. But for the most part, probably have to give them joint places because I probably got the same enjoyment out of both of them. Even though people say like World is a lot easier than the previous Monster Hunter games, I don't find like all my enjoyment in having insanely difficult fights. And I feel like Fatalis kind of dealt with those haters, and even Elatrion brought out a lot of haters on the Steam reviews.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I've answered this question to many of my fans who've asked, and I was going to make a video about it, but I just, you know, when I tried, it just didn't work, and like I messed up so many recordings. But as of right now, I don't really have a favorite Monster Hunter game. I can't say I love all Monster Hunter games equally, but as it stands, I don't really have a favorite, and the reason why is because all the Monster Hunter games have all these unique features that I really love that I really just wish were in one game, you know? Like the underwater mechanic, Monster Hunter 4 Ultimate's Wyporium trade system, mining nodes in your farming area, stuff from Freedom Unite and Portable Third. Those features I would have really liked to just have in one game. And also some downsides from all the games so far. I'll just put a list of downsides. 3 Ultimates, glitches, the unreliable RNG 3U has, 4 Ultimates, tedious way to get Palico gear, Monster Hunter World's weapon designs being, you know, not great at all, and then Monster Hunter Rise's roster so far being a little too similar to previous games, with like 11 brand new monsters, when in my opinion there should have been more new monsters in the game, but that's just me. But yeah, a lot of that is why I don't have a favorite game yet.
agree with all of them, but Rise's roster definitely took me by surprise. I feel like, especially since I was following the marketing, like including all the leaks and everything. Of course, I won't say anything here, but I feel like they marketed quite a lot of the monsters that are in the roster. And I don't know if that took away from me just like going into the game and thinking, I'm assuming there's going to be at least double the roster of what they marketed in the actual game, but it seems it wasn't.
That's the thing.
So
like, they revealed too much. Like, they revealed just about everything except the final boss. That's basically what it comes down to.
Including the armors as well. That was one of the Twitter feed was just ridiculous. It was like, oh, Gossarag armor, Almudron armor. And it wasn't even just covering the Hunter armor, it was like the Palico, Palamute. And then it got to the point like, okay, they're just pretty much showing a lot already. But I guess that kind of shows how good the game actually is, because they marketed a lot, but I think the core mechanics in the game were still like amazing. I was still blown away. It was just the roster that put me down, honestly, personally.
Right. Same here, honestly. One more thing about that. I'm actually quite surprised that we don't have Ignactor, Zamtrios, or Tetsukabra in the game, despite all the smaller versions being in there.
Yeah, that is a very peculiar thing, especially since they pulled that in. Was it Generations Ultimate with Great Jaggy?
Oh, yes.
I think it was, yeah.
We have Jaggy and Jagia in Rise, but no Great Jaggy. We have Great Baggy, Great Roggy, but no Great Jaggy. Okay, this next question comes from, sorry if I butcher your name, Kaio Boladum. Sorry. What is your favorite Deviant?
That's actually a hard one. I think my favorite Deviant, this may come as a far-fetched one, not even a far-fetched one, unpopular one, probably Dread King Rathalos. As you can see by my profile picture, Rathalos is one of my favorite monsters. He's not my favorite, but he's definitely up there, maybe in top 5. And Dread King it was very powerful. And of course, it's named from Japanese, translated to, like, I think it was like Darkness Lord, or like Black Flame King.
Wow.
And it always just came off as like a very powerful, like, black dragon type monster. That's literally what I saw from Rathalos the first time I played Unite. I was like, whoa, it's a massive dragon. Obviously now I slap it with like a hammer and it's like it's way easier. I feel like Dread King Rathalos is what child me envisioned Rathalos being. Obviously it's not the original Rathalos, it's the Deviant version, but it kind of made the child monster hunter in me, that dream, that vision of Rathalos come true.
I could definitely see why that's an unpopular opinion, because a lot of people hate Dread King Rathalos, because the fact that you have to break both of his wings before you can even flash bomb him, that adds a challenge in there, but most people just think that's gimmicky. But in my opinion, I think Dread King isn't horrible, but he's definitely really hard. Of course, my favorite Deviant, which is, my favorite monster in general, ReaverJolt. He has just such an amazing design, and I love the gimmick. I love the cyan blue electric powers that he has. It's insane, and I love it.
Yeah, 100%. Bolt Reaver definitely grew on me because of you. Started becoming like, oh, Astalos is a pretty cool monster, but before then it was just like, oh, one of the Fated Four. So you did well with the propaganda on your channel.
Oh yeah, that whole propaganda with the Fated Four, where it's like, ever since Acidic Glavenus was an Iceborne, that's when I was like, okay, where's the other 3?
Yeah.
This question comes from Duplex, my good friend Duplex, who makes Monster Hunter remixes, by the way. Go check him out. What is your favorite soundtrack in the Monster Hunter series?
That is such a hard one. I've actually done a video on my favorite soundtracks, but if I had to choose, I'm going to say top 2, because I will hurt inside if I just pick one. And I'll try not to say Proof of a Hero. Ancestral Steps is definitely one of my favorite map soundtracks. When I first played 4 Ultimate, of course, one of my favorite games. It felt like you were in a vast area, and of course Ancestral Steps did try to be a very vast area, especially with the intro to the map. I would say Monster Hunter World's theme song. I forgot what it's called. I think I have it on my computer somewhere that I've used in the video.
It was Stars something.
I think I've got it here. It's Stars at Our Backs.
Yes.
That definitely, if I think of Monster Hunter World, that straight away pops into my head as like a very catchy theme. So I'd probably have to say that and Ancestral Steps from 4 Ultimate.
My favorite soundtrack, and this is, I'm not even going to hesitate about this, it's Shigeru Megala's battle theme. I mean, come on, it's so epic. When I played Monster Hunter 4 Ultimate, I was just playing it, the story wasn't all that great, up until, the Gore Megala, when you fight him, and then you take him down, and all of a sudden there's this build-up. He becomes Shigeru Megala, and then he sees you for the first time and knows that you're the one who took him down and wants to get revenge. You all of a sudden face this giant golden white beast that wants to cause this calamity in the land while you are there trying to save everyone. That's just such a cool idea. I love the concept, and I love the soundtrack. The soundtrack just really adds to all of that, and that's why I think it's so good.
Yep, I have to agree with that. It's a pretty good theme song. And yeah, like you said, the story as well. There's a very good plot, especially for a Monster Hunter game.
I wouldn't say, you know, I've had a lot of comments from that top 10 battle themes video say that the story in 4 Ultimate is the best by far, but I have to disagree. I have to say that 4 Ultimate's story, while iffy in a little areas, had a really good plot build-up. That's what I have to say. It has the best build-up in all the Monster Hunter games. I wouldn't say best story.
Yeah, I would agree with the statement about by far, but it definitely is a good one. Like, I did enjoy the Freedom Unite story as well. It wasn't as complex, but just the start of having you're just walking through snowy mountains. Of course, this is not when you start playing. It's just the introduction.
Right.
And then you get knocked off by the Tigrex, and you have to build your way back up. And then you face that Tigrex again. I keep mentioning this urgent quest throughout this video, but the Tigrex, it had a big relevance in the plot to the start of Freedom Unite, and I did enjoy the revenge story.
Right.
Like, this Tigrex took me out, so now I'm going to build back up to it and take the Tigrex out instead.
Right, yeah. I think a similar thing was in Portable Third in the intro. You see Amatsu in the sky, but then all of a sudden there's a Zenogre right there and you get knocked off your cart and then you have to jump back down onto it. Next question from Austin Shaw. What do you feel is or are the most important aspect or aspects to a great Monster Hunter game?
I'd say definitely the game loop kind of is like the fundamental of a Monster Hunter game. Obviously, you have like Monster Hunter Stories, which is a bit off the regular game loop, but I think for at least the mainline one, just having that good cycle of monsters to go through, to progress through, to kill, take the materials, make armor, progress to the stronger monsters. That's definitely one I would say is quite fundamental to having a good Monster Hunter game. I'd say roster as well. Mentioning Rise before with the roster, I did kind of feel a bit empty when I got to the end, like the quote-unquote end game of the base game. But once again, like, I can just forgive them because of course they had like COVID,
of
like,
course,
disruptions
yes.
and all that. So I'm not like, oh, the developers are not doing their jobs. They did the best they could. At least I like to believe so. So
Yes.
I definitely say the roster, game loop. I feel like 4 Ultimates, of course, 4 Ultimate is the ultimate expansion, but I think like that roster is definitely one of my favorites, and I feel like that kind of made it what it was. Same with like Iceborne, like the collective roster at the end of this life cycle. It kind of summed up the experience for me.
For me, in my opinion, I think the most important aspect, and I'm just gonna say one aspect, the most important aspect for me has to be what you do after you beat the game. The end game, of course, because a lot of the end game from most Monster Hunter games is usually just you beat the game, you get end game gear, and then you just test it out on everything. That's really what it comes down to, unfortunately for me, and I really don't like that. I would prefer there to be a lot more to do. Like, I kind of wish that there was this system where there was extra story quests that you could do. Let's see, I think a good example is Monster Hunter 4 Ultimate's additional story quests that you could do from updates that they would add in. I mean, the plot wasn't great for either of those, but some of them were pretty fun to do, like the Seregios fighting you on a ship. That was pretty cool. ZX Mac, this question isn't really a question, but let me see. He's saying, ask him whether he's a fan of item restocking and items like whetstones, bug nets, pickaxe, barbecue spit being simplified. They won't take a space from your item pouch and being infinite use. I think what he's trying to say is, what do you think about item restocking and the items that are not in your pouch that are infinite use?
Right, so item restocking, I would say I'm not too fussed that it's in the game. I wasn't a fan of it at first. I was like, this kind of makes the game too easy. But then obviously you have the counter argument just saying that you have the option to not use it. But then obviously if it's there, you're more encouraged to use it. You're more likely to feel like, okay, it's there, I may as well use it. I'm not really too fussed whether or not it's in the game or not in the game. I kind of prefer it in the game, so I have the option there. As for unlimited items like the whetstone and barbecue spit, I would say I'm for it just because I like the game loop for just fighting the monster. I'm not too fussed if, okay, do I have all 20 whetstones on me or do I have my barbecue spit on me to cook this piece of meat? Like, I feel like they're very tedious things. The one thing I do kind of miss, and I don't know if it's Freedom Unite nostalgia again, is having pickaxes, bug nets breaking, or having to carry them. That I kind of found cool, because I was like, okay, I'm like a miner. It's like a Minecraft crossover, taking your pickaxe in there and hoping it doesn't break.
Yeah.
But as for like the whetstones and like barbecue spit, I can get by with that. It's like I'm mixed with unlimited items. I'm not fussed about. Some of them I kind of miss, but I don't mind having unlimited of them.
Now, this next question is from Max Back. What is your favorite weapon and why? Pretty sure he's referring to a weapon type. I don't know if he's asking for a specific weapon, but I don't know.
I'm gonna assume this is for at the moment. Greatest of all time, without getting too much into it, is Greatsword. I've used that for most of my Monster Hunter career. But at the moment, for Rise specifically, I've been addicted to the longsword. Like, absolutely, like, addicted. My guild card is like 99% longsword, 1% greatsword, and then maybe like 0.1% charge blade. Like, charge blade greatsword used to be, I'd say, joint favorite. Greatsword was the original, charge blade joined on afterwards. This game, longsword, like, I've just been obsessed with learning all the monsters' attacks just to be able to EI and foresight everything. It's not going so well, but I'm learning. Let's just put it at that.
My favorite weapon type is gotta be, by far, Charge Blade. I love the complexity of it, and I love the concept. The concept ultimately is what got me into the weapon type. Back in 4 Ultimate, that was the first weapon I picked up. I instantly fell in love with it, because I loved the idea of the sword and shield transforming into a transforming into a battle axe. I do love that the sword and shield mode is bigger than your average sword and shield. That's something I've kind of wanted in a video game for a long time, like a bigger sword and a bigger shield. I mean, of course there was Lance, but I wasn't huge on Lance. But I did love Gun Lance, of course. I still love Gun Lance. But Charge Blade, my favorite weapon type, so I just love it.
100% agree. Like, a charge blade is pretty epic, especially when you're landing like your super elemental discharges.
Oh yes,
it's probably one of the most satisfying, especially when you get the full hit and like your initial hit hits the head and the rest of it goes through the body.
Yeah,
those are like one of my favorite hits.
Very satisfying. It's annoying though if you miss all of it.
Yeah.
Anyway, next question from, oh my gosh, I'm gonna butcher this so hard. Okay. Muguiarano boy. Sorry if I butcher that. If you hear about someone making a Monster Hunter fan-made game, what will you think about it, and would you encourage it or not?
I would say yeah, as long as obviously Capcom allows it and they go by their guidelines for what a fan game can be. I'm 100% for it, because of course there's a lot of fans who have some awesome ideas for what should be in a Monster Hunter game that maybe the developers don't have on their list. So I don't have a big answer for this. I'd say go for it, and I would enjoy playing it if I got the chance to. Give it a test.
For me, as long as it's an original idea for a fan game, I would encourage it. But if it's just taking something from Capcom's actual games and putting it into a fan game, that's where I would draw the line, because Capcom is pretty strict when it comes to their assets being taken and used for other games. But so far, we don't even have a fan game, a Monster Hunter type fan game. I think a good example would be a mod that's been taken down numerous times for Ark, the Ark Hunting Evolved mod, where they basically took the assets from Monster Hunter 3 Ultimate and put it into Ark as a mod. It was good, but it was taken down because it used a lot of Capcom's assets and just put them directly into the game. I mean, that's not really a fan game, but that's a mod. If there was an actual fan-made game that had originality put into it, I would be okay with it. But if it's, you know, something that uses already Capcom-made monsters in it, I probably wouldn't be fine with it. But I don't know. That's just me. All right, next question. AJ Najar. What's the best way to approach the game, and how important is the story? Oh my gosh, I feel like we touched on a lot of what this guy's asking, but try to answer it.
As for the story with a Monster Hunter game, like, I would definitely not go into it thinking it's going to be like some Last of Us experience or some very epic storytelling or very fleshed out. I would go into it just for the game loop itself. If you like grindy games and fighting big monsters, developing your like equipment, fighting stronger monsters, taking their parts, going one onwards. Obviously, that's how I would prioritize the story to the rest of the game. And then as for the best way to approach a Monster Hunter game, personally, definitely be to take it slow, first of all. Don't rush through the content. Only exception being maybe like if you are playing older Monster Hunter and you want to get to the end game, where I think the bulk of the game time is, at least for me, then I would rush through it. But if it's your first time playing a Monster Hunter game like Rise, and it's like the most recent, and you're committed to that, then definitely take your time through low rank and learn the game properly, then take your time through higher rank, rather than rushing through it. Because I do have a friend who started on World, rushed through it, all the way up to Iceborne, and then realized I enjoy this game way more than I thought I would. Stopped playing Iceborne, created a new character, played through it again slowly, got burnt out before he played Iceborne. And if you watch this video, you know who you are. And then he just wasted his money on Iceborne because he burnt out himself from rushing through World and then playing it again to actually take it in after realizing he enjoyed it.
Oh, yeah, that's rough. But yeah, in my opinion, the best way to approach a game would be to really just take your time. Like, honestly, if you're just trying to rush through the game, like, you know, it doesn't help that Monster Hunter World has this defender equipment that makes everything so easy. I would just encourage you just to take your time. Now, I am being a little bit of a hypocrite with this because I gotta be honest, I did kind of rush Rise because I was just trying to get through the game without being spoiled, and as much time as I wanted to take playing the game, I just wanted to get through it before being spoiled by anything. So that's kind of how that happened. I kind of rushed through it, but that doesn't really change my outlook on the game itself. I mean, if I had taken the time, I would have enjoyed it a lot more. As it stands now, all I really have to do is just wait for an expansion. I'm kind of done avoiding spoilers at this point, because I feel like it's just it was a lot more of a hassle than it should have been. It also doesn't help that they revealed just about every monster in the game aside from the final boss, which, you know, that didn't help me with trying to avoid spoilers at all. That's kind of why I rushed through the game. As far as story goes, I would say if story is going to be implemented, it's got to be put in a way that does not take away from the actual game. Cutscenes absolutely should be skippable. No questions there. Now, if you're gonna add a story, make sure the characters are somewhat relatable and actually, you know, thank you for doing things. Like, one of the biggest examples is the handler from Monster Hunter World. You know, I'm not saying this to hate the handler, but a lot of what you do, at least in the base game, for the handler in those cutscenes, she doesn't really thank you too much for you know, rescuing her from certain things, dying from fireballs or something like that. But the other example would be Hinoa when she had that power to resonate with Ibushi. After you deal with Ibushi and Minoto is like, save my sister, Hinoa doesn't really thank you after that. So that kind of leaves me scratching my head a little bit.
Branching off your story points, one of the things that I saw a lot in, I think World did this as well, Rise is doing it as well, obviously. That's the most recent, so it's both like in my memory. It's like when the village chiefs are like, gather all the hunters because of this some big battle, and then they just send you in. It kind of takes me out of the immersion. I'm like, okay, he's gathering all the hunters as if it's going to be some big collective, like, unite against the monster. And then they're like, no, you, hunter, you all go face this alone. And it's just like, okay.
It's the chosen one gimmick that they like to do in all these games. The next question that we have from The Biggest Smoke is, what class of monster do you want more monsters? And oh my gosh, this question, it's not worded right. What he's basically asking here is, what monster idea do you want to come into fruition, basically?
As for what monster I want to come in, or what type of monster I want to come into the series, not entirely sure. I feel like they've done a good job across the series trying to bring in large diversity of monster types. But as for what monsters I would like to see more of would probably be, I don't know what the exact name is, but the spider type monsters. Like
the Temnocerans.
Yes, that's it. And like Nasilla. Definitely want to see more of those type of monsters.
What type of monster idea would you like to have? Like, what I mean by that is, would you like there to be like another unique type of monster in the game that hasn't been in the game yet? A specific type of dragon type monster, or one that's more similar to a mammal? Or anything like that?
Not entirely sure, to be honest. I don't think I can think of one. Okay. At least not right now.
As far as monster types I would want, I honestly thought that Monster Hunter Rise was going to have more snake wyverns, but no, we just have Remobra. But I don't even know if Remobra really counts because it used to be a flying wyvern, but now it's a snake wyvern for some reason. I would like to see more snake wyverns in the game especially ones that are more catered towards the end game. Because Naturala, I would have loved to see Naturala come back as well as his subspecies, but they're more or less semi-mid-tier monsters, I'd say. I would love to see more powerful snake wyverns come into future Monster Hunter games, whether it's the next Rise update or G-Rank expansion or the next generation entirely. I would love for an idea of a monster from dinosaurs, like a monster based on either the Allosaurus or the Utah Raptor. The Utah Raptor is the largest raptor in the world that has been discovered. I would love to see a monster based on that. Like, I would love to see a powerful bird wyvern that is like at the same level as Devil Joe. That would be pretty cool.
That would be pretty sick.
And that is going to do it for us today, guys. Thank you so much for watching, and thank you, Hunter Project, for joining me in this video. Glad to have you.
Thank you for having me. It was, once again, like I said in the beginning, thank you for the opportunity, especially considering how small I am.
And by the way, guys, if you'd like to see other Monster Hunter content, I would highly check out the Hunter Project. He makes some good content. The link will be in the description below and also at the end card of this video. So thank you very much for watching. Be kind to one another, and have a most wonderful day.